keeps me going in it anyways, as of now.
For sure. Which can be a hindrance too. You can get caught in that too and just end up running in circles all day. But
true. How do you prevent yourself from doing that? Like, I'm still pretty new in this. I'm about a year or so in, and I've dove headfirst into the deep end, man. Like, luckily I have a wife that supports whatever crazy ideas and things that I want to do. But yeah, how do you prevent yourself from kind of spiraling or fizzling out? Or,
I mean, definitely balance. And I mean, as you know, with just like you said, the realizations that you've had from the mushrooms with the drinking and probably other things too, just I think the awareness level, like just having the awareness level of like once you start feeling like that, like knowing how to balance it, whether, we need other stuff too, whether it's, your family time or whether it's, meditation and breath work, whether it's going to the park and getting out in nature for a walk and a hike and maybe going foraging out there too, but I think it's just a matter of balancing those things. And because it is tough. And I mean, I've definitely hit points where I had some burnout and I don't necessarily like think I hit like a slump or a lull or anything, but at the same time, like I definitely didn't have that same excitement or that same thrill for a little bit of time. And I mean, that could have been, I'm sure there was different things in life necessarily going on at different points too that all play little factors. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter of that balance and making sure that the things that, especially if you get into it and you start vending, because there's that balance also that then comes in, the aspect of it's work. And, it's work, but you don't want it to feel like a job, obviously. And, balancing that also is something that I think it can be tricky at times, depending on how you do things and making sure you still find that, I guess find time for that curiosity in it. Don't fall into just the routine of doing it to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wanting to stay locked into enjoying your process and not getting too tied to like, I have to do this or that.
Right. Like you got to keep a schedule with certain things too, especially to keep like a lab flowing. You can't just do ag once every 2 months. Like, well, that's probably not going to cut it. But at the same time, still have fun with it. Find the fun.
What so I see some guys here in the audience. There's definitely some other vendors in here, and then there's some guys that I know are kind of newer to vending. How long have you been vending? And then how much, like, what kind of advice, I guess, would you give to some of these guys that are looking to get into vending or, maybe have just started?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's been 4.5 years or so now. Like when I first started doing it, it was actually at like the tail end of like all the COVID stuff, and the job that I previously had working at the university and stuff, that was kind of fizzling out. And so this was something that I had, like I said, kind of gone deep onto. And so at that point, I was just kind of, here and there selling some cultures, just kind of doing it like as a means to get by. And for me, it kind of, I don't want to say it took off because it definitely took time. It definitely took time, but it was more successful quicker than I thought it would be, like to where, I mean, I didn't really expect it to be anything. And I was actually, making a little bit of cash that it definitely wasn't like paying the bills or anything like that. But it was like something that showed a little bit of promise to me, just as I was, starting to do that. And then it was probably 4 or 5 months into doing that was when I really just kind of, my job completely fizzled out and I just went full on. And the biggest things I would say is consistency, and we all know in mycology there's going to be some mess ups. Like no matter how clean you are and stuff, like there's always some shit that happens where none of us are 100%, or at least I haven't seen it. But um, at the same time, like, you know, there has to be, you have to have some sort of standard for yourself, and I say set it as high as you can, because just settling for, oh, if I send 10 out and 3 are contaminated, and I'll replace them, but still, if that's 3 that are contaminated each time, like that's not really, in my opinion, that's not okay. That's not good enough. But other than consistency, I think good customer service goes a long way. There's a lot of people that when I first started, that was the biggest thing that they told me, was that it was just nice to have someone that actually stayed in contact with them, got back to them about stuff, and helped them out along the way. And those were the biggest things that I kept hearing along the way at the time, because there just wasn't a lot of people available for that. Granted, it's opened up a lot more in the past 4 years or so. There's a lot more people doing it. There's a lot more people, thankfully, helping each other and all of that I've seen, compared to how it was, 4 years ago or so. And things were just a lot more hush hush. A lot of people didn't want to talk about it as much, because they were still a little bit more concerned about, the whole lay of how everything was. But yeah, I mean, those things. And then don't the other big thing I would say, which I kind of did, I'm guilty of it, so I sound like I feel like a hypocrite saying it, but it worked out for me. But I've seen so many times when too many people try to jump in with too many things on their menu, and that really bites them in the ass right off the get go. If you can create some stuff on your own and have something that's unique, I think that unique goes a long way also. And it's hard to do to an extent in this field at this point, because so many people are doing so much, but I still think there's plenty of room for it though too.
Right. Having a couple of quality things is better than having 100 things that you can get from anybody.
Exactly. Yeah. If you go collect all the land races like everyone has, and try to sell those like everyone does, I, I don't see why anyone would go to you, because there's already people doing that.
So, yeah, no, that's solid input. I think the most important thing, like you said, was the customer service thing. Stuff's going to happen, but having someone that you can
Yeah.
hit up and be like, "Hey, this is like," send a picture of a plate, and or maybe even grain or something that you put a plate to, or a syringe or whatever. Um, Having someone's, instead of like, because I've experienced in the past where you get something from a vendor and send them photos or something, say it contaminated or whatnot, and they try to find a way to like put it on you,
Right.
instead of just maybe biting the bullet. But I get that you can't do that for everyone, because I don't know, you don't want to. I don't know. That seems like a tough one to balance.
It is kind of, honestly, because yeah, you don't want to just be that one that just gives away stuff for free to everyone, just because as soon as they complain, you give them stuff for free. But at the same time, in a way, I think sometimes that goes a long way, because most people, I don't know, from what I've seen, most people aren't going to take the time to go out of their way for like a single syringe, like just to,
Right.
oh, let me sit down and send an email so I can get a free syringe. Like, if, and let's, in my opinion, kind of, if someone is that desperate that they're doing that, maybe they just really need that fucking syringe. So you know what, let them have it.
Yeah.
But like it there is like a line, I think, and for me, you know, it's when you get some of these people, and I get them sometimes, where they say, "Oh, I got 6 syringes from you," and all of them are junk. None of them do anything. And it's like, okay, well, if you just said 1 or 2 or maybe even 3, that sounds realistic. But if you got 6 of 6 different varieties and you're saying none of them have anything viable, then something happened between when I sent them out and they got to you, because that's not normal. And there's certain kind of cues like that to me that you can kind of use a little bit of common sense, as far as it's the same as how we troubleshoot when you start getting some contamination. You got to look at the variables and go, okay, where did this happen? How could it have happened?
Right. I kind of want to shift here from vending things to just the mycology side of it, because there's most of our members and a lot of the people are just that's what we do. We like to grow the stuff and not necessarily vend it, kind of trade things out and whatnot.
For sure.
You were talking about on the vending side, not put too many things on the menu. And it's been spoken about before with especially new getting into growing and cultivating and whatnot. It's been talked about a lot by several different people, but like not trying to grow everything. I know that's a struggle for me. I see something, I'm like, oh, I got to grow that. I got to grow that, and do a bunch of different things and have a bunch of different stuff that all kind of requires slightly different environment. Um, I think that's a common mistake, and it's talked about a lot. But I'm wondering, what are maybe some other mistakes you think maybe that you made early on, or that you think are kind of being made now that people could try to avoid?
I mean, I'm 100% with you on that. I definitely was guilty of that myself also. I got into it and was like, I'm going to grow a bunch of 64 quart tubs of ape and fill them. And I think that resulted in like 6 of the 64 quart out of all 6 of them, like dumped out back for my first attempt. Because, obviously, depending on the ape culture, there are some really good ones out there, but a lot of the ape cultures that haven't been worked a whole lot are not the easiest ones to grow. And starting off with 64 quart tubs and trying to do 6 of them right off the rip was not the smartest thing. So yeah, I agree with that. Not trying to do too much, and that's what I'm saying. It can kind of go both ways, not just necessarily a bunch of different strains, but also don't try to go crazy bulk, necessarily in your first couple, few, or even 5 grows, I would say, because we can get, 3, 4, 5 grows under our belt and everything goes great. And then you hit the stretch of the next 10 and nothing goes right. Like it can flip on us real quick sometimes with some of this stuff. So, I would say, yeah, just, try not to jump in too deep on either end as far as too many or, too much bulk. But at the same time, I will say I've kind of gone the opposite way as far as all the different strains and trying to modify or adjust for each one. And instead, what I've kind of done is just worked them to get them to all work in the same environment. And I'm not saying they don't all have their, little nuances and stuff. But at the same time, like I run all of the stuff that I have at the same, and I don't have to adjust for it, like as far as extra fresh air on this one or that one. And some of them did run that way when I first started, working with them, but they're really adaptable too. So I think if there's certain ones that you really want to work with and they might be a little harder, they'll probably work for you. Just give them a little bit of time.
So what's your process on that? Say you've got something. So yeah, you've got something that maybe requires more fresh air exchange or higher spawn to bulk ratio or whatnot. What's your kind of process of getting it from when you get it, just and it kind of doesn't do exactly what you want, and getting it to where you want it to be?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's pretty easy, I think, because each time what I do is I just take the best looking, like as far as what I'm hoping for, the whole thing, the morphology, the healthiness of it, so denseness, just all the good qualities, and if possible get spores and a clone from that. Sometimes you get like a really good fruit, and then maybe that one doesn't have good spores, or maybe the gills are dirty or something. So if I got to get spores from a different one, I will go that route also, just if that's the option that I have. But basically, I will just clone and take spores each time and run them. And, so say I have one and I take a clone and I take spores and then I run it. If the spore run does better, then I do the same again from that, spores and clone, and run both again. And if the clone had done better, then I would do that with that one.
Gotcha. So you're running a clone and spore run from each one.
Yeah, typically, unless like unless like once I'm into like certain genetic work, like if it's like a newer cross, a lot of times what I've found is with those, I will clone a couple times before going to spore, because if I'm trying to isolate a specific phenotype, if I'm trying to just, you know, go to the next generation, see what other stuff I can get to pop up, then sure, just go to spore and go with it. But if there's a certain phenotype I'm working towards, I've found it better to clone it a couple of times and then go to spore again, and I'm more likely to get it to repeat from spore at that point.
Gotcha. How many times do you think is reasonable to, like, when do you start worrying about cloning, like over cloning or things getting tired and whatnot? Do you ever really worry about that, or it's kind of just what is it, senescence, or I don't know
Yeah,
how to say
yeah.
the word.
Yeah, no, you're right. I believe that's how you say it. Like, I could be saying it wrong too, but senescence. Um, I honestly, I haven't really run into that being a problem with cloning. Um, I I've heard that, and maybe after generation after generation after, but I mean, I've had some of the same like mutants, like blobs, that you know I've cloned probably a dozen times over, and there's certain ones where it's gotten better, certain ones where it didn't perform as well, but then the next time I cloned it, it got better again. So from what I've seen, I think it depends more on the quality of the clone than necessarily if it's the degradation of the genetics through multiple cloning
Gotcha.
processes.
Yeah, I personally, I mean, probably haven't done enough cloning of one culture to ever run into it yet. But it's something you hear. It's something a lot of guys hear is get worried about, too many transfers and stretching genetics and making things go tired. So
Oh yeah, yeah. I've had a couple people when I sent plates out to them. You know, they saw it was like a T6, and they're like, "Oh, do I need to get this to backup storage right away or something, or do something with it because like once it gets to 6 or 7, it's pretty much going to die out, right?" And I was like, "I don't know where you heard that, but like I have some that are at like 15 and 16 that like still perform like the 1 and 2. It hasn't made a difference at all."
hmm. Yeah, no, that's good information. I know it's something that I kind of have concerned myself with, and maybe not needed to. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I think there's so many variables that it's, you know, by percentages. If you look at, okay, by the third transfer, the likelihood of a contaminant getting in there it's vastly lower than if you've taken 20 transfers, because every time you open that up and take a transfer, there's, you know, even in front of a flow hood, there's still that small percentage. So I think numbers wise, like statistically speaking, there's a higher chance of maybe the culture having issues. But I just personally haven't seen strictly taking multiple transfers like start to degrade the quality of it.
I got you. Here's a good question here from Shroom. He's over in the UK. He said, "How many clones and isolations back to spore until you consider something your own and not be a culture vulture, so to speak?" So, like, you get a culture, right, and you grow it out. Uh, like, at what point is it kind of your own thing?
I mean, to me, first and foremost, it's got to perform differently, and like, there's got to be something different. Because, like, it kind of annoys me when you see all these different names and you look at it and it looks just like a golden teacher. Like, if there's nothing special about it, to me, giving it a name is just kind of silly. Um,
Yeah,
that's my take on it, but I get that, you know, if you're working like a wild culture and then there is some, you know, aggressiveness maybe that you've isolated, that you can get down to the nitty gritty with some of that. But as far as like, so I think it's got to be different completely. And if it's like a culture that already exists and you're isolating something new, to me, I would personally want to take it out at least 3 generations from spore, like 3 actual from spore generations, not clones. to make sure that it was going to repeat that new distinct phenotype.
Yeah.
Because once from spore, twice from spore, okay, but that third time, like the third time to me is like where, okay, this is actually repetition. Once you get to 4 and 5, like then you're really narrowing it, you're nailing it down at that point. But I think by the third time, if it's distinctly producing different stuff, then it's something different, you know.
Right. I think too. I guess something I wonder, not necessarily like renaming something or in that aspect, but like say you get a culture and you've worked it a bunch, and it's something you pass out to people. Um, like at what point, because if it's like a cross or something that is pretty exclusive to one vendor, then I think giving giving props to that vendor or whatever, like, oh, this is so and so's, I've run it through 3 generations. But if it's something that's been out for a while, um say, I don't know, something that's been out for a long time. Ape, right? There's a ton of people with an ape saying like, oh, this is my ape, right? When you're passing that out and not saying, oh, I got this from so and so and ran it back to spore 3 separate times. I guess how does that play a role? When is that like yours instead of renaming something? It's kind of my thing.
I mean, I think once you've run it and cloned it, even you could say like, this is my culture that I, like
Yeah,
you
your
said, like
culture. That's good.
yeah, like I mean, or my clone or whatever, the one that I'm working now, um, like you said, like still giving props to whoever you know did it or whatever. Like I wouldn't get toke and then all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, this is the fungus frequency toke that looks just like the other toke.
Yeah.
Like it would have to be. I mean, there's obviously some variations of it out there that do look different and are cool different varieties, and that's cool too. But yeah, I mean, with that kind of thing, when you're just if you're not vending it and you're just passing it out as far as that or whatever, I would think that once you run it and you've cloned it, like that's your culture that you've worked.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Um, Now, with we mentioned crosses a little bit, and that's something that I've seen you do a couple of, and I'm wondering what your process is on that. Like, what are some things that you consider when you are thinking of genetics to try to create a cross? Um, and yeah, what's your process on that?
So I've gone about it in a lot of different ways, honestly. Like I've tried to kind of go about it in all the different ways I could think of. And early on, I think it stemmed from if I could find two really aggressive cultures and put them together, would it make a super aggressive culture? Like we all want. If we can take two great things and make it even better, why not?
Right.
um, and so that was kind of more so early on. Just my basic kind of thoughts behind it was just try to make something that was in my mind at that point, aggressive meant fast to fruit, less likely to contaminate. So things that would be easy for people to grow, because at that point I was still relatively new. So that was kind of what I had in mind, was just try to make stuff that's easy to grow, because I knew how hard it was at that point and how much failing sucked. But I mean, since then it's all sorts of just curiosity, honestly, because there's so many different morphologies that sometimes it's just, man, if I took this squad and put it with this whatever, what the heck would it do? Just there's so many genetic variations that I think it's just there again, it's like we talked about before, it's just the curiosity that drives it to see what might come out. And sometimes you cross stuff and you get what looks like just a regular cube, and sometimes it stays that way, and sometimes it does that for a generation or two and then goes absolutely wild. And there's just so many different like ways that it works out that I feel like it literally is just it always keeps things, you're always guessing, it's always interesting.
There's some people I've talked to are doing things like trying to cross land races back into what they would consider overworked stuff. Is that something you do, or you're more like, okay, this is super cool. This is super cool. Let's see what happens when we put them together.
Oh yeah, no, I've definitely done that too. I've done a few crosses with an Australian land race that I have. um I'm trying to think. I know I've done a couple other, but yeah, definitely working back in the land races, I think is a great way to keep the depth of the genetics, because all of these other ones, like, they all came from the land race genetics originally. So all of those possibilities lie within those original land race genetics, and we've isolated, which over time does start to just bottleneck the genetics, and they'll do so well for so long, but then being able to dip back into a little bit of that diversity in the genetic pool, I think is key to the longevity of keeping more aggressive variations.
Right. So, on this topic of crossing and genetics and whatnot, I saw you post something not too long ago that I'm really curious about. And I know this kind of might get in the weeds a little bit and gets pretty, sounds like, I could be totally wrong, but it sounds like it could get pretty, deep into the more sciencey stuff. But I'm really curious about what you were talking about with the mitochondrial transfer.
Yeah. So pretty much just the fact that we've looked at, and this is actually true for not just in the mushrooms and stuff, but it's more recently getting looked at in just human biology too, is the mitochondria, and more of the even the mitochondrial DNA that it has within it, instead of just the nuclear DNA that we've mainly focused on as far as genetics and heredity and all that kind of stuff. And sorry, I started looking at the chat. um but yeah, so basically mushrooms, one of the things that they have the ability to do through the hyphal anastomosis is to exchange cytoplasm, and it's extremely common in varieties that are similar. So the more you put more different stuff together, it's less likely. But the mitochondria itself, where we're looking at the DNA, and basically trying to think how to explain it the best, but it's with the mitochondria, it's like you're changing the engine. Instead of trying to change the whole thing, you're changing like the power source. You're changing how it powers itself. So you could have some of these genetics that and this is where kind of like bringing back in the land races and stuff into the genetics, this is another great tool for that also, because the mitochondria, which can get kind of like worn out over time with the isolating and everything, when you can reintroduce those other phenotypes that all have slightly different mitochondria, mushrooms have the ability with through the hyphal anastomosis to basically coordinate and determine which ones of those are the best to use, just through pure or survival of the fittest kind of thing. It's just, that's how nature works. And so through that, it can, in a way that crossing monokaryons and dikaryons with monokaryons and all that, where they can't necessarily always, they're creating something new, whereas with the mitochondrial aspect, you're reinvigorating something in a way. But based on the way it's reinvigorating, also phenotypical display changes many times. So when you're looking at the actual DNA, you may or may not see complete changes, but within the mitochondria, which is different, and that's where I'm first to say, I'm not like an expert on the microscopy end of all this and getting under a microscope and trying to prove all this or anything. That is not my expertise. It's just been a lot of researching and honestly playing around with the mushrooms and seeing things happen and trying to figure out what the hell was happening when I'm putting two things together and something different's coming out, and everyone's telling me that can't happen. Everyone's telling me you're just mislabeling stuff. And I did it over and over and over and over, and I still couldn't get explanations. So I just kept looking and looking and looking. And it's, of course, it's not really studied in any psilocybin kind of stuff because all that shit's been, you can't touch it as far as like academia and stuff.
Yeah,
but
legalities.
yeah. So you can't find anything on that, but there is very similar studies have been done on similar species where it's like not even debated at all that these are the types of things that's what they do. So to me, I don't think that there's any doubt that it's happening just based on what I've seen too, and putting different cultures together and having different things come out.
Yeah. So with this mitochondrial transfer, are you saying that that's not? I guess I'm trying to understand. Is that happening when you're doing daimon, mon, or is that happening some other way?
This is happening with di. This is just putting two dicaryons together.
Okay.
And in the same way that, like, when you're putting a monokaryon and a monokaryon together, or a monokaryon and a dikaryon, when you watch them meet up on a plate, you'll see sometimes, like, I've done it with, two separate verified monos where they don't clamp. They don't mesh up or anything. Like, you can tell that they're like rejecting each other because, at least to best of my understanding, it's because the organelles and the alleles are not matching types because they're too far separate. And fungi have like a innate sense of these things. It's like their compatibilities and stuff. So in the same way that'll happen sometimes, it happens with dicaryons too, where sometimes I put them together and they completely repel each other. But I've had other ones many times now where I put them together and they literally fuse together and start offshooting different stuff off the side, and something different completely comes out. Albino Bayou Beringue is one that I've had around for 3.5, 4 years now, and that's a perfect example of it. It was an albino Louisiana cubensis, which was basically it looked like a albino teacher. It was just pretty much just like a tat, like a true albino teacher. And I put that with PE on a plate together, and it started popping out these giant albino like monster fruits, which was nothing like either one of them before. So it's not the same as far as like it's not technically breeding in the sense that there's the nuclear exchange necessarily, but there is some sort of transfer going on. There's a genetic exchange going on that is creating something new and different.
Huh. That's interesting. Have to play with that for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's some questions here popped up. Somebody was asking, let's see. Someone wanted to know what your thoughts on AIO bags versus spawning to bulk in a bag.
Personally, I haven't used a lot of the all-in-one bags. I've tried like two that different people sent me like a year and a half ago, and one turned out all right. The other one wasn't great. But I haven't tried a lot, so I'm sure there's probably people out there that do make some solid ones, but I just haven't tried them to say. So I don't know. To me, I guess for beginners and stuff, if that's the easiest way to go, Like I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. But if you're going any further than just a grow or two, I think you're just better off, getting into it a little deeper and doing the grain and the substrate separate, just for better results and for a better chance of success.
Yeah, that's been my experience. What I've seen as well. I think my very first stuff was all in one bags, and yeah, it's like the moisture can't be right because it's just different. You're better off buying. I mean, if you're going to buy the stuff, you're better off buying the two things separate and then mixing.
Right, right.
Oh, yeah. Let's see what else we got, guys. Uh, agar. We're always talking about agar. What are some? Get into some basics. Maybe we went pretty deep with the cross stuff. Let's maybe talk some basics here. Um, agar recipes, stuff like that. What do you usually like to run agar wise?
So I keep it real simple. I do the same recipe all the time, and I have for a while. It's just 21 grams of agar, 11 grams of late malt extract, half a gram of nutritional yeast. That's for 1 liter of water.
Gotcha. Simple. Does that
Yeah.
change for spore, or do you run the same for everything?
No, I run the same for everything. I used to try and switch it up, and honestly, I just didn't. I don't know. I guess there might have been some cultures that were a little like some spores or something that might have been a little dirtier, that the water agar, like, or a lower nutrient one, helped at some point. But I've just gotten to the point personally where I don't know, to do the different batches just isn't really worth it for me, because it doesn't do that much different to where I find it necessary.
Fair enough. We got Platty. Platty asked a question here. So have you seen up on Culture Cave put it up on Instagram, the BDG versus mushroom?
Oh yeah.
He's saying who would you want to go up against from the cave if you had to grow off?
Well, the talks from a little bit earlier is that it might be me and Side Team United,
Oh,
which is really cool because I don't know how many people even know anymore, because it's been a while. But when I was first starting, Kyle from Side Team was actually the one who taught me a lot of shit. So
that's awesome. So you'd
yeah,
be
so
going up against him?
yeah.
Hell yeah.
At least that's the talk at this point. I'm sure there's going to be plenty more to come.
Right, right. Yeah, I want to put some money on these.
Yeah.
Looks fun though. That's cool. It's a good way to get all you guys having fun with it, like you were talking about, not being so buried in the vend thing, like keeping it fun, keeping it interesting. That's cool.
For sure.
Moon's down here saying he'll smash all of you. Funny.
That's we'll have to just like have to have like a meetup where we all just like have our bags and just throw them at each other. Just see who can pelt the other one hardest with their bag.
There you go. Let's see. We got another user here said he wants to hear some. This guy wants to hear unpopular opinions. You know, that actually makes me think. I've asked this to others before, but what are some things that you used to like die hard believe in? Maybe not long ago, or maybe when you first started, some things that were like, yeah, these are, I just, this has to be done kind of thing. You really believed in it. And you've progressed and moved on to thinking it's unnecessary. Was there anything like that for you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, one thing comes to mind, and it was like real early on when I was first starting off, and I thought that I don't know, someone must have told me because I got it somewhere, but I thought that even when you were like flame steril, like that when you were using a new blade each time, so you'd have to pull the blade out, flame sterilize it, use it, and then throw that blade away, and then get a new one. And so when I very first started doing agar, I was going through a shit ton of blades for like a week. And then I was talking to, it might have been even Kyle at that point, who was like, dude, no, like that's the whole point of flame sterilizing it. It's good to keep using it.
Have you gone from the flame sterilizing to like using an induction sterilizer and stuff?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've had one of
That's
the
so
induction
nice.
ones. Yeah. I can't imagine not having that, like with the foot pedal and everything, because then I can just like, what I do is I just lay my scalpel over in there, and then like as I'm wrapping up the couple of plates I just did, let it heat up, then turn it off, and then it's ready to go as soon as I'm ready for the next couple, and it creates a nice flow.
Yes, it's a nice thing to have. I got mine from one of the guys in our server trains. Made me a cool
Nice.
one.
Oh yeah.
What else? You guys got any other questions for the legend right now? God. So you said everything you're doing is you try to get it all on the same uh, same kind of grow. Like, how are you setting up? You're doing tubs or bags or
Oh yeah.
and how do you like to
I've
set them up?
all bags. Yeah, all bags. I've been doing all bags now for a few years, and so I do. It's pretty much a 1 to 3 spawn to sub ratio. 1 quart on to about 3 quarts of sub per bag. The large, I think they're 3B when you look at like certain sites, but the large grow bags. But I use some people still use the point 0.5 micron filter, and then they'll like cut it or slit it or whatever. But I like using the 5.0, and then I can just set it and forget it. And I don't actually seal the top of my bags either. I just use like a rubber band on the top of it. Um, and I go a little bit over field capacity, but not too much, because I've found that in the bags compared to tubs, that they hold the moisture better. So I don't really need to go too much over. And for sub, I do it's like a CVG mix basically, but then I do a little bit of cow manure compost that's mixed in also.
Gotcha. Oh, Heifel come in here with a question for you. He said everyone has one that is on constant rotation just because they love growing it. What is yours?
One? You mean like 30? No. Shit. uh I mean, Natal Moon always stays in there. That's one that it's it's been good to me since early on, and I've used it for a lot of crosses, and it's been great. And uh, um, but I will say, like in the past 6 months or so, El Dragon has been in there too nonstop, because that's been a pretty cool one. That one's either throws a fucking full flush. Hello.
Yo, you cut out there.
Oh,
You good?
oh yeah,
I
I
was
think so.
looking.
I don't
I
know.
was looking at my
I don't know.
screen like what the hell just happened? Yeah, you were talking about El Dragon, and it
Cut
kind
out.
of
I don't
cut
know what
out.
else. Oh yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, El Dragon, it either tends to throw like a really, really full flush or iron. So that's been really cool too.
Nice. What is that cross?
El Dragon is El Choco crossed with Ghidorah, which Ghidorah is isolation of PE. but it doesn't. Ghidorah doesn't look anything like PE because it comes from PE, but it started throwing lots of weird fruits for me when I first put it into a bag, and I was able to isolate one that it's like usually pretty chunky fruits with some real wild gills on it, which turn upward like big time, which is like the opposite of what normal PE does. So
Nice. So those are your couple favorites right now?
yeah. And then I got there's a couple other ones. One that's called quadricets, and it's like a double cross in a way because it was Ochracea centrata crossed with Huatla, which was actually from across from Ed Grand, and then I crossed that with an early generation of what became El Dragon, which was El Choco and Ghidorah. So it was the two different crosses. That's why I named it quadricets, because it was like 4 sets of genetics basically. And that one's been a monster at this point. Like I'm at the F1 and already have like 13 phenotypes I'm trying to figure out. So that's going to take some work.
Oh yeah, fun. It gives you something on the horizon. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Gives us something to look forward to grabbing too.
Yeah.
What somebody was asking for a link to your website. Are you able to let me try to put this in
Oh, yeah, I can.
this up. I want to put a link to your site in the chat there so these guys can go check your stuff out.
Yeah, and if anyone goes to the site, just log in to access all the actives.
Oh, you have to log in for it, make an account.
Yeah, it's set up that way because back when I made it, like sites were going down left and right. So
Yeah.
that was just the easiest way to keep it from showing up and everything and getting it taken down. Like I keep considering like changing it because there's more stuff out there now, but then I'm like, I don't know. As soon as I do, if something happens, I'll be pissed.
Yeah, it would suck. Sweet. Well, we're coming up about an hour now. You have anything else you want to share with the group? We got 37 people in here wanting to listen to you. So that's pretty cool. I think we got a good turnout. That's good.
Yeah. I appreciate everyone showing up just to hang out and chat and everything. But I mean, it's hard because like so much. I know there's like probably a lot of newer people and things that we could go over, but like I forget about so much of that and like what people do or don't know, and so if I have questions, I'm happy to help out with that. And as far as like to go back into like a little bit of the breeding or whatever, I always tell people experiment and try stuff, because like when I first started doing like the die carry on stuff at the beginning, and of course everyone's saying that this can be happening, what you're saying is happening, can be happening. After a while, pretty much alluded to, and was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go learn how to do it the way that everyone says it needs to be done. And that way I can compare the two and see what's happening. And I still don't have all the answers, and I don't know. I kind of think that's built into the system. Like as soon as we are understanding everything completely, then there's going to be more that we don't understand. But as far as all that, I mean, I say just try stuff. For a long time, people would really rag on the double swabbing and saying, it's not a verified method for crossing stuff. And sure, it's not according to maybe looking under a scope or whatever. But if you got A and B and swab them and fucking ZYX comes out and looks nothing like A and B, then something happened. And maybe it was a technical cross, maybe it was some of the mitochondria stuff like we were talking about. But I think the only way we find more stuff like that out is people trying stuff, and especially trying the stuff that other people say don't try.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like the playing around with ideas that are kind of stuff that people I don't know. there are some mycologists out there, some people out there, especially in some of the communities that are very against like things, just different things, stupid stuff too, and I think it's cool to just go for it, fuck around, find out for yourself.
Exactly. For sure.
There is no progress in science without experimentation.
That's right. Did you have something, Blue? You had raised your hand and
yes. Moondaddy was not hearing me or understand what I was saying, I guess, so he wanted me to be on with my voice. He was saying, let's see if I can find the message right here. I'll scroll up a bit. He said karyogamy occurs in the basidium before the diploid undergoes meiosis and more haploids are the result. And I was saying the basidium is what produces spores, or at least the organelle that they grow off of. It's already in a dikaryotic state. How could that be producing
Okay, so back to the beginning.
Without just the process of spores.
Go back to the beginning from where you originally started, because that was my response to what you originally said.
All right.
Yeah, let's see if I can find that one then.
Real quick, let's do this. You guys can hash this out. Let me finish up here with Jeff, and then we can, switch over to this discussion maybe. Unless, Jeff, if you want to chime in on it.
I mean, I'm cool, but we can chat it out and see what everyone has to say.
Yeah, okay.
So I was asking, how are the dicaryons separating back into a haploid state if they already went through karyogamy? If that's at a nuclear level, how are they separating?
How could they have undergone karyogamy if it's a dikaryon? Dicaryons haven't gone through karyogamy. The karyogamy is when two dicaryons become a monokaryon again, or a diploid. They're two haploids.
Yeah, diploid. Diploid. It's already a diploid, so it's going to produce haploids. No,
it's not a diploid. It's not a diploid until karyogamy. It's two haploids still. It only becomes a diploid after karyogamy.
Something that's able to produce fruit is a diploid. So if you're taking two diploids...
No. You got two haploids. Only after karyogamy occurs does it become a diploid, where the nucleus come together and they become one. The same thing that happens inside your mom's womb. It doesn't happen until after. Karyogamy is because they're sharing genetic information through the cytoplasm, not the nucleus, until after karyogamy.
The order that the process goes through on a cellular level is hyphoanastomosis, plasmogamy, and then karyogamy, and then it becomes a diploid.
After the gills are formed. So karyogamy is the process in which it turns into a diploid.
Yeah.
That is the Yes.
But it doesn't stay.
So if it's able to produce, a fruit, and it's able to produce spores, then it's already in a diploid state.
It's only a diploid state for a short period of time. Yeah, it's only diploid. For a short period of time. When it produces spores, it goes diploid, and then automatically goes back to.
A monokaryon, a haploid.
So then what's the purpose of clamp connections?
Because they're sharing genetic information. They still are. That's what's interesting, right? So when we look at a mushroom, it's not the organism. The mushroom is two organisms that are sharing information together. It's like the courtship. You're looking at the dance. Okay. The same way, like you see a dog humping itself, that would be the mushroom, or not humping another dog if they were mating, right? Like those dogs are fucking. The mushroom is the two creatures fucking. It's the same thing. It's just different.
So through the actual cellular process that happens, though, right? So if you watch slow growth under a microscope, like a time lapse of hyphae growing, you'll see the septa, the cell walls, and then you'll see a clamp connection form. It'll be a little hook, but it's not fully clamped down. And then the nucleus will go up into that little hook, so the next cell can form where the next nucleus goes. That's the reason why the nucleus is to go, so you don't end up with more nuclei in one cell than you need.
That's not one
then it will go, because then it will kill itself off.
It's still two nuclei.
It's still two separate cells.
It's still two nuclei,
Okay, it's
and
called a
they're
cell
fused
union.
by cytoplasm.
Yeah.
That's not two nuclei into one becomes one nuclei like it does with the diploid. In mushrooms, and these mushrooms, it's two separate nuclei fused by cytoplasm. So it's that's
Which is where genetic information can be exchanged even through dicaryons. Two dicaryons can come together, and they might even have a part of that cell wall that wants to experiment and see which one's more compatible with which, and then possibly just genetic just a little bit of information gets exchanged. Or it could be, you know, I theorize that there's some sort of sympathetic response that we don't understand. Like the same way when I yawn and you yawn, right? Or that when someone sneezes, somebody else usually it makes you feel like you need to sneeze. That's a sympathetic response. Which is the same way when you grow two different strains of mushrooms to get right next to each other together for a year, how they slowly start to become the same thing. Have you ever noticed that? Something's going on.
Absolutely.
Do you think do you think that something that's going on where they're changing into the same thing almost is not them exchanging any DNA, but the dominant traits for that specific environment just expressing over a period of time?
I think that there's a lot of ways that you could explain it away physically. I think that's an interesting concept. But so here's the thing. Like I could go somewhere else, completely different place in the world, and grow the exact same shit, and it's always going to end up turning out looking like my shit. Even if I'm using completely different materials, completely different elevation, completely different environment, it always ends up looking like my shit. There's something more to growing mushrooms than just like, oh, there's always this explanation. There's something that's you know, there's a connection that you develop in a relationship that you cultivate with these things. I think it has a lot to do with trust and being aligned with who you are personally, almost in the sense of like we're doing some type of alchemy with these things. But yeah, I think that's probably it could play a role. I think that there's a lot more to it than just thinking of it so linearly, because every time we do that, it seems to be completely different, and there's even more to learn. You know. It's just not that simple, I don't think.
Yeah, no, not everything in genetics is like black and white. There's a lot of weird nuance overlaps here. But like,
they just don't play that way.
I guess would you consider it breeding then, or would you consider it like some type of small amount of horizontal gene transfer in
something
some
like
way?
that? Something like that. More, I wouldn't say that you're not verifying. You're definitely doing something, and you're creating new varieties.
Yeah,
but
for
I
sure.
don't think that you're breeding.
There's a bunch of different ways to create new varieties too, though. You can you can lysol it and cause mutagenesis with chemicals. You can use high UV nanometer wavelength, like 365 nanometer UV light can cause mutagenesis. There's a bunch of different ways to fuck with it. But like,
absolutely.
The distinction between actually breeding something and mutating something is a little different, though.
Yeah, and I don't think that he's mutating it either. I think that there's some sort of gene transference probably going on. One other thing I'd like to point out is that I've seen photographs of his barrage zones where there's actually showing that there's anastomosis actually occurring, at least to some extent. And maybe it goes in, maybe it comes out, maybe a little bit. Yeah.
So a lot of the papers that I've seen that are cited for a lot of this stuff are referring to Schizophyllum commune. Claimed are like blender tech doesn't really, that's mechanical lysis, and that destroys the mitochondria. It dies. Yeah. I don't see how that's a viable option at all. But there's other ones that I've heard for like using polypropylene glycol as like an antifreeze, so you can cryo freeze stuff and then pull them apart with other stuff, and then
you can just put them in water. Yeah. I use a natural technique. You know, I just put them in water, just stress them. You take phosphorus and magnesium out of the equation, you grow two separate monokaryotic colonies. But in doing this and doing the classes that I've done, I'm now on my third one that I've been teaching. Each one's like a year long, dude. They're fucking awesome.
You're taking the magnesium and what out of the water?
Phosphorus. I'm not taking it out of the water. Is what happens is this is what I theorize. Is that with the organic material from the mycelium, from the secretions, right, the metabolites that are naturally constantly being recycled in your liquid culture, there's a process that can happen at room temperature with organic materials, certain organic materials, to phosphorus and magnesium. And that's where it becomes magnesium phosphate as a chemical reaction.
Yep.
And that's less bioavailable to your mycelium. Not to mention, there's not that much of it in just water, and they will use that up fairly quickly. But this happens naturally in nature. This is something that happens. And I'm able to attain symmetrical recovery on demand with cultures. And I proved it several times, time and time again. It's not debatable that it works. But at the same time, while observing a lot of this stuff and a lot of, just doing these classes and having these talks and even having specific topics and conversations about what frequency is doing, there seems to be something going on. And I've seen plates where, you can see it happening, where you can see the hyphae connecting in spots, and it's not fighting itself. There's not a barrage zone forming. And that to me is like, okay, well, there's something. And then he's saying, I got this and this, it's this much different, and it's coming out, dramatically different every time. Well, there's something here. Okay. I'm not saying that we need to put it in the journals and keep this doctrine. It's not gospel, but it's something that we need to look at. And it's definitely not something that we need to say isn't happening, because it appears to be happening.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that nothing's happening at all.
Yeah.
My hold up is like the actual technicality on whether it's true breeding or something else. And
It's something else, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said from the beginning. I said it wasn't actual breeding as far as technically
you did say
speaking.
Yes,
But
you've told me that before too. Yeah, where you don't really know exactly what's going on, but something's going on.
Right. And that's, as far as I could find, what I was finding was related to the basidiomycetes. I don't recall right now the specific paper or anything like that, but it was in reference to the cytoplasmic exchange for the genetic variability, and it was like explaining it as a trait for just in nature, a trait that they're known to use. So now that was my logic with that. So like I said, I'm not 100% on any of it, but that's where I was going with that, and it seems to make sense, and it makes me even wonder too, even further down at the mitochondrial DNA level, because there could be mitochondrial DNA that's getting exchanged, and even full mitochondria doesn't have to be exchanged at that point.
Okay.
So like that's, you know what I mean? Like I said before, I think there's levels and levels, kind of like Moondaddy was saying, like to this, that like we don't understand, I'm sure, obviously. And I think even when we get to the point where we might be getting close to understanding it, there's probably more that we don't understand.
Yeah, as soon as you figure out the mechanism for control for this, there's going to be something else that throws a gear in the wrench, or throws the wrench in the gear.
Yeah.
I feel like the mushrooms fuck with us. I feel like you'll look at one thing and it'll do the same thing, but the second that you recognize it and you go back to do it again, it's like they behave on a completely different level.
Absolutely.
That's what there's so many studies, I can't even think of one off the top of my head. That's how many there are that are just like, well, that's bullshit, and we can prove it very easily right now. Whether or not it was bullshit at the time, or whether or not they're just fucking with us and just switching it up and doing something completely different that we were unaware of. It's a trip, dude.
Right.
Like when I started isolating mons from water, I had to be careful for a certain time period. This is during my first class, and my students were doing the same thing. We had to be careful not to isolate mons. Like when we were doing a tissue transfer, or it's like these things were literally. It was weird, It's like, that's something that's neither here nor there, but it's just something trippy. Like these things are intelligent, is what I'm getting at.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times people have got a culture and think that it's bunk because it doesn't grow a mushroom. It ends up being a happen. It's like, well, it's a fucking monokaryon, dude. You need to let it make.
Very first grow, I'm pretty sure I accidentally did that before I had any idea what I was doing. I did a spore swap and I did it really gently with hillbilly. I grew it out like when it was brand fucking new.
I believe it.
I grew it out, or like on the plates, tried to throw it in there. Colonized completely, and then it stalled out for like 3 months. Didn't do shit. Never grew.
Just stem and post growth. Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't have the full fucking data to make a fruit.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. The more I learn about these things, there's just alien. It's like that's in between a plant and an animal. And it's its own thing at the same time. fucking weird. Mushrooms are weird. Fungus is weird.
They're pretty insane.
It is.
I love it.
Yeah. And it's a very humbling experience to be able to work with them and do the things that we're doing with them right now, especially right now, like over the last 6 years since 2020, ever since COVID, this thing is just like exploded with new shit. It used to be like, every year or so you see something that's notably different enough to take a glance at it and notice it, right? And now it's every fucking day. Like, what the fuck is this? It's fucking awesome. Especially with Cubenzis. I think that pans are on the way. I think pans are definitely on the way. I've seen one of my good friends, Gooch, got you by the Gooch. He's pulling some really cool shit, doing some cool stuff with his pans. It's like, that looks like a miniature cube that's mutated in some freaky way.
Pans are
stabilizing this stuff too.
for sure soon, because like somebody just put out a isolated bag grow pans. I have an isolated bin grow pans. Like the availability that people are going to have to grow them compared to 20 years ago is going to drastically increase.
Oh yeah, I've had bag trained pans I've had my pans bag trained and doing just as well as they do in trays for the last 2 years. I have a culture, TTBBI culture, that's really fucking popular. That it's just growing. Now the young guy's doing well. I know that Heifel, he's in the chat. He has been doing great.
I did it with
He's had some great runs.
I did it with the MIB isolation. I got that thing to grow in bins for the past like year and a half. It's been growing steadily in bins.
MIB is an overlooked culture, dude. That thing is honestly probably easier than TTBBI, and it's just not talked about.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Far easier. Like it requires less attention.
Yeah, and it's Magic Myco, man. We need to give that guy some credit with like he did with Tidal Wave too. That whole experiment was fucking wacky, but it ended up with some really cool shit. Yeah, so he basically took 2 dicaryons and he like electrocuted them. He did all sorts of shit. Used some chemicals and then smushed them together in some weird contraption, and then out came the 5 different tidal wave varieties that we have. That was all through just like each tidal wave isolation, each tidal wave strain, I should say, has different amounts of each, as well as mutations from B plus and P plus envy. So that's why you get so much variety in the tidal waves.
Yeah,
and he did the same thing with MIB. That's where MIB came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta go grab something real quick. I'm gonna mute myself. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So I just wanted to understand what you were saying. What's that?
I was gonna say, I've been running all the pans ever since I saw you and Gooch and them doing the pans in the bags. I've just been getting all of them and running them in the Horizon 5.0 micron bags, and they've been running great.
Yeah, and then clone them, go back to spore, isolate the genetics that want to fruit in that high CO2, low oxygen environment. Fucking send it, dude. Clone it back to spore. I think the Gooch is on like F6 from my original F4 TTBBI, and he's getting fucking sequoias in there, dude.
Yeah, it insane.
Yeah, that's like, dude, awesome. Why am I growing cubes right now if I could be getting the same amount with fucking goddamn,
Yeah, triple the potency, same yield.
Yeah, dude. Young guy has more potential than anything I think that's out there, just because of the fact. I mean, you look at Chica, the guy, Sport Exchange, the guy who discovered it. Dude, he's getting cube weight, low end cube weight on his trays that he's doing in his tent, but still.
Damn.
And it's young guy that just broke the record for the most potent land race, shattered TTBBI's record. This early in its domesticated life, even, so it'll be taking the throne soon. I suspect that TTBBI and young guy will battle it out back and forth for a couple of years, and then it's just going to be left in the dust. It's young guy from there on out. So
yeah, who knows? Maybe some crossover stuff.
Yeah. So I've been crossing it with some stuff too. Experimenting. I've done a lot of pan crosses and never grown anything out, and I'm finally to the point where it's like, all right, I'm gonna grow something out. So I'll have something soon.
Hell yeah.
Good shit, bro. I appreciated your conversation on here today. I listened and it was good.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you coming in and hopping in.
Yeah, thanks for hopping in and saying some stuff and clearing some things up. Jeff, thank you, dude, very much for hopping on with us. I appreciate it. We'll have to schedule another one sometime. lot of really good information from you and everybody else today, man. We appreciate you guys always being willing to do this. So, yes, till next time. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having
guys.
me. Good
Be
time.
good.
Absolutely.